Welcome back. In this section, we're finally going to begin designing and building some real web pages on our site. I'm sure those first setup sections felt long at times and probably weren't the most fun ever, but trust me, the understanding you have now is going to help you build amazing websites so much easier than before. The first page we're going to work on in this section is the About page. This is what our sample About page will look like when we're done, and you can see here it has an awesome full-width header at the top, nice clean layout, some gorgeous images, and some easy-to-read text. In each of these page building sections, we'll work our way through the layout of the entire page, section by section, with each one incorporating new features and skills. Finally, when we have everything laid out on the page, we'll come back and do a responsive design pass to make sure everything looks great on tablets and mobile devices. As we make our way through these next sections, remember to feel free to customize the design we're working on however you'd like. Try different fonts, pictures, layouts, anything you dream up. This is just a sample site waiting to be customized by you. Again, congratulations on making it through the setup phase. Now let's get to designing. Welcome back. In this video, we're going to get started on our About page by creating the full width banner image at the top. So I'm here in the WordPress dashboard and we'll navigate over to Pages. And under About, since we've already worked on this in Elementor, you'll see this Edit with Elementor button. We'll click that and that'll take us into the editor. So before we get started on this page, we're going to double check a setting real quick because I think when we created this page, we hadn't yet set our site-wide defaults. So let's go down to the settings and look here at the page layout. What we want this to say is Elementor full width. So if yours doesn't say that, let's change that now and click Update. And then we may want to actually go ahead and reload the page. The other thing you're going to want to do is make sure you downloaded the resources folder at the beginning of this course or in this section. That's where you'll find the images we're going to use and some of the content we're going to use for this page. So to get started with our header, we'll create a new section and we'll just have one column in this section. And the first thing we're going to do is set the background image of this section. So if you recall, to get to those settings, we can right-click here and click Edit Section, and then come over here and go to the Style tab. Under the Style tab, we'll set a background type, and we'll just do Classic. Under Classic, we can select a color or an image. We'll select an image, and this will bring up the media library. We'll click Upload Files, and then go ahead and navigate to that file in the folder of resources. This image is called About Header.jpg. So once you find that, you can go ahead and just drag it onto here. Once that's loaded up, we'll hit Insert Media, and there we go. We've successfully put that image as the background of our section. Now, as we can see, the section isn't quite tall enough and we can't really see much of the image, so what we're going to do is go into some of the section settings to adjust that. Over here in the section panel, let's go to Layout. So under Layout is where we'll be able to adjust the height of this section. We can adjust some other things as well, but for right now, we'll stick with the height. So under Height, we're actually going to set this to a minimum height again. And our minimum height is going to be 525 pixels. You can set that to whatever you'd like, but I think that's a good size for a background image, especially on desktop. If we go over to the Style, we can adjust 4 different aspects of that image as well. We can adjust the position. We'll leave it at default, but let's say you upload a picture with most of the subject at the bottom. You can actually set bottom center or bottom left or bottom right. And if your picture is big enough, it'll slide and adjust and anchor it to that corner of your image. So we'll leave it as default for now. We can also adjust some other things like attachment and the repeat if we want it to repeat. The only other one we're interested in is size, and we want to make sure that this is on cover. Cover means that no matter how big the screen gets or how small, that picture will stay in proportion and fill that space. So we won't ever see any weird white bars or anything like that around it. Now we'll add our text into the middle. So let's click this icon up here to go back to our widgets, and we'll put some heading text right in here. Now this heading text, we're not going to use the default H1 we set before because we want some pretty large text here. So we're going to customize this a little bit. First, we're going to change the text to just say about. Then we're going to head into the style. We're going to change the color of the text to white. We can just drag the color picker up to that top left corner. And now we'll click typography and adjust the font. So for our title pages or our banners on our pages, we want to use a different font. And this one's called Roboto. So we'll look for that. There it is. And we'll do a little adjusting here. So on desktop, we actually want this to be 150 pixels, so nice and big. And we want it to be all capitals. So we'll transform it and do uppercase. There we go. That looks great. So now we'll hit update. And that's it. We've got our banner image set up with a background image that'll scale with the window. And we've got some nice big clear header text here that labels the page for the viewer. In the next video, we're going to move on down to the next section and begin laying out our page. See you then. Welcome back. In this video, we're going to start building the first section of our About page. So to get started, let's create a new section here. And this one, we're going to have 2 columns. So let's click this second icon here. So here's our new section with 2 columns, and we're going to adjust these columns. Now in Elementor, there's many ways to do this. The easiest way is to just hover over this middle border here and click and drag, and we can set them this way. We'll make this right one 60%, our left one 60%, and the right one 40%. The other way we can do this is to go in and click these little column indicators, which bring up the Edit Column dialog box. And then over here, we can adjust that as well in this top setting, column width. So we'll leave this at 60 and 40, and we'll start on the right side here by adding an image. So we know how to do that. We'll go back to our widgets, and we'll drag an image in over there. Now we'll click here to upload an image, and in the resources folder, you'll find an image called About Section1.jpg. So once you find that, just drag it in. And when it's loaded, hit Insert Media. And there we go. And this is actually set exactly how we want it to be. We'll use the WordPress created large kind of thumbnail for it that fills the screen nicely. And now on the left, we'll add our content. So we'll go up here and let's add a heading. So we'll drop that heading in there. You'll find the content for these headings and all of the content on the web pages in the resources as well in a PDF. So this one says, simple is better, less is more. And that's our heading. We'll leave it as an H2 for now. Now we'll add a new element we haven't seen yet. We'll go back here to the widgets and we'll add a divider. And this will provide a little bit of a visual separation between our header and some of the body copy that's coming later. So for this divider, we've got many settings as well. We'll adjust them over here. First, we'll start off by making the width a lot smaller. So we can drag this and see what this looks like. We're going to try to hone in right at 20%. So that's great. Let's go over to the Style tab and change the color and the weight of this divider. So here in the color, we'll set a custom color. We'll do pound C5, 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 sort of a lighter gray color. And for the weight, we'll move it up to 2.5. So that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and add our body copy below that. So we'll go up here, go back to our widgets, and drag over the text editor. And in that same PDF, you'll find the content for this. So we'll go ahead and copy paste that in. And there we go. So that's looking pretty great. Now, it looks a little funny to have everything lined up at the top here. It'd look a lot better if all of this content was in the middle. And we can do that easily by going back to our column settings and setting the vertical align to middle. There we go. That looks a lot better. So now we've added an image and we've added a header and a divider and a body copy. And this first section is looking pretty great. In the next section, we're going to go ahead and build the biography section, section 2 of this web page, and learn how to make this layout look even better. See you then. All right, and welcome back. As we mentioned in the last video, things are looking a little bit cramped here, so we're going to take a look at an important topic in this video that'll help us lay out this page a lot better. And that is the topic of margin and padding. So margin and padding are two different ways of providing space in the layout of a web page. And really the best way to understand this is to jump right in and try it out. So what we're going to do here is take this top section, and I'd like you to picture a fence around this top section. Maybe you can see the blue outline around it. Picture that as a fence. Now margin and padding have to do with protecting that fence. Padding is used to keep things inside farther away from the fence, like this text or these images. And margin is used to keep everything outside the fence farther away from the fence. So to illustrate that, let's take a look at this top section. So we'll go to the section settings here, and over in Advanced, on almost every widget, under the Advanced tab, are the margin and padding settings. So in this section, what we want to do is actually add some padding. So what we're going to do is we're going to unlink these. If they're linked together, all of them will match no matter what. So we're going to unlink this, and we're going to set some top padding on this top section. So let's type in 75. Did you see that? Over here above the image and the content, we just added some padding away from this fence, keeping everything inside farther away. Now to balance things out, let's go ahead and add 75 pixels of padding to the bottom. Already a ton better, right? Now we can also add padding to things inside of a column or section as well. So let's add a little padding inside this column to move this text away from the image a little bit. So we'll go up here to edit the column, over to Advanced, here to that same margin and padding settings. We'll unlink the padding so it's not all the same, and we'll add some right padding of 75 pixels. And there we go, a lot better already. Padding keeps everything inside farther away from the boundary. Now, what about margin? So let's go ahead down here and change the background color of this bottom section. So we'll click Edit Section, head over to Style, and we'll set a background type. Now if you remember in our earlier videos, we set some presets. So we'll actually click this globe right here, and we can see our background color that we picked for our Coming Soon page. Let's click that and make that a background on this section. Now for fun and to illustrate margin, let's actually set a background color for this section as well. Style, background type, and let's just pick any old color we want. Now, while padding sets the inside, margin sets the outside. So if we were to go back here to this top section, click Advanced, and set our margin, we actually can only set the top and bottom margin. And that's because this web page knows we want everything centered, and it would be unlikely that we want things out of place horizontally. We can do that if we'd like, but we're not going to in this project. So for an example, let's go ahead and add 75 pixels of bottom margin to this section. See how it introduced a white gap there? That's margin. Margin is on the outside of the element you're working on. So let's go ahead and take that away. Let's change this top section's color back to nothing. We can toggle those off by clicking that. And now let's go work on this bottom section a little bit. So we'll add the same kind of padding here. We'll unlink the padding. We'll add 75 pixels on the top, 75 pixels on the bottom, and then we'll add 75 pixels of padding to the left side of this column. Now, these images also have some built-in padding, and that's because of this column. Elementor adds a little bit of default padding to different things. So we'll go ahead and come in here, and we'll just clear that out. And now we'll see that picture fill that frame. And we'll do the same thing up here. So we'll go up to this column, and we'll just clear out its padding to make that image fill the frame. Now, you can also use negative padding or margin to adjust things, and we'll do that right here. So we'll take this founder text. It looks a little bit weird evenly spaced out between these elements. I think it should be a little bit closer to the name. So we can actually take that, click Advanced, same margin and padding, we'll unlink the padding, and we'll actually go backwards to -15 for the padding, or for the margin on that text. That looks a lot better to me. And there we go. Now you understand what margin and padding is, and I'm sure you agree this is a really valuable tool and skill to know when you're laying out web pages. Margin and padding is literally everywhere, and especially when it comes to responsive design. In the next video, we're going to go through this page one section at a time using primarily margin and padding to make sure everything looks great on both tablets and mobile devices. See you then. Welcome back. As we talked about briefly when we built our Coming Soon page, responsive design is not only necessary for all modern websites, but thankfully it's amazingly easy to pull it off in Elementor. After our last video on margin and padding, I'm sure you can see how those two settings play a vital role in mobile design. Now before we get started with the responsive design for this page, I want to give you one quick note. Now responsive design is definitely something you could wait to do until the end of your web project when you've got everything looking great on the desktop. But I have found it's much more valuable to do it while you are designing. Many times, I'll actually realize a better way to do something when I'm adjusting for mobile and wind up incorporating it back into the desktop layout. Now numbers vary, but most studies have found that well over 50% of internet traffic comes from mobile devices, so responsive design is definitely not something to ignore. Elementor works best starting with the desktop design like we have and working our way down to tablet and then to mobile. Design settings in Elementor are inherited. That is, what you set for the desktop site will stay that way on tablet and mobile unless you specifically change it. So let's get to work. I found it easiest to go by section as we adjust for mobile devices. So let's start here at the header, and we'll go ahead down here to the responsive mode, and we'll change it to tablet and see what it looks like. So let's scroll back up here to the header, and it looks all right. I think this text looks a little bit close to the left edge, and maybe a little bit big. And, actually this whole header image might look a little tall itself. So we'll play around with some settings and see what we can do. Let's start with this section as a whole. So we'll click that to go over here to our settings. And let's go to Layout. Now we had a min height set for the desktop site of 525 pixels. I think on an iPad or a tablet, we could make it a little bit shorter. So maybe for this one, let's actually set it as a minimum height, and let's use viewport height. Tablets have different heights when they're in portrait mode, and so maybe we'll just say that this header image should only be 35. Let's say 35 viewport heights. That looks pretty great. Now let's adjust the text a little bit because now it looks kind of big. So we'll go over here and let's adjust the typography of this and set this to maybe 100. It was 150 before. That looks a little more balanced. Now I also think it looks a little bit close to this left edge, so maybe some padding on this column would be helpful. We'll go into those column settings, over to Advanced, and we'll clear out the padding, and let's go ahead and add 35 pixels of left padding. That looks pretty great. A lot more balanced than it did before. Now let's move down to the mobile view and see what our heading looks like there. So once again, text is a little big. The height looks okay though, so let's focus on the text. We'll go in here, back to typography, and we set the last one to 100. Maybe we set this one to 50. See how that looks. Looks pretty great. A little bit too much padding maybe in this column, so we'll lower that a little bit as well. Let's clear that out and add some left padding, maybe 20. Yeah, looks great. So now we have a header that looks good on mobile and tablet and desktop. Let's move on to the next section. All right, so this section looks great on desktop, lots of good white space, very simple layout, very clean. Let's see what it looks like on the tablet. All right, so still pretty good, but everything's bumped right up against the edge of the screen, and that doesn't look too great. So let's adjust the padding of this whole section as a whole. So we'll go up here to our Edit section, we'll click Advanced, and let's go ahead and set some even padding. So we'll actually leave those linked together. And let's see what happens if we put some padding around everything. Yeah, that's starting to look better. Maybe we'll actually make it, we'll double that, 35. That looks pretty great. Now this picture looks a little bit funny here on a tablet, and it's because we've got quite a bit of text over here, and this picture, if we want to keep it as a square, isn't going to fill this space very well. So another thing we can do in Elementor is actually control which elements are shown or which elements are visible on the different devices. So maybe for this one, let's experiment with not showing this image on the tablet view. We'll click the Edit column, and we'll go over here, and we'll open up a new tab we haven't seen yet called Responsive. Now in this tab, we're able to actually control on which devices different elements are shown, and this is another amazingly powerful tool in Elementor. So let's say that we want this picture to hide on the tablet. So we'll actually just hide it like that. And then we'll say that on a tablet, maybe this column should be 100% wide. So we'll go back over to the column layout and see here we can specify a percentage width specifically for different devices. So we'll look at this tablet and we'll actually say that this is 100% wide on a tablet. And let's go ahead and actually center all of this content. We'll go in here to this column and let's erase our padding. And then go into each text element and center it. We can also center the divider. And we'll go ahead and center our paragraph text as well. There, that looks pretty great. Now you will see what's hiding here, but you can tell what's going on, and we've got our correct margin and everything, so it should look great on a tablet. Now let's move to our mobile view and see how this first section looks there. All right, so this is looking pretty good, except this header text might be a little bit big. So let's go ahead and change this. We'll go in here and override the standard setting just for mobile. And we'll say that maybe this header text looks better at 33 pixels. That looks great. Now on a mobile phone, there's quite a bit of white space here, and we might be able to see things a little bit better with less padding. So let's go ahead and adjust that as well. So we'll reset this padding, and we'll say that maybe 20 pixels all the way around looks good. Yeah, that looks better. And once again, we'll hide this image by going to Advanced and Responsive. And we'll hide it on mobile as well. That way, when somebody comes to the About page on a mobile device, they'll just see the nice big header text and the intro paragraph we want them to see. All right, that looks pretty great. Let's jump back out to the desktop view and move on to our final section of the page. All right, for this section, we're actually going to do most of the same things we did to the top section, so we'll move through fairly quickly. We'll go up here and we'll make sure we have our section selected, and then we'll move to the tablet view. So here in tablet view, we're going to change this padding to 35 pixels all the way around. And we're actually going to adjust this picture. I think we want to keep this picture so we can see the founder, but what we might do on a tablet is go ahead and make this column 100% of the width, and then let's go ahead and make the picture a lot smaller. So we'll go ahead and make the picture 50% of the column width. There, that looks pretty great. And we'll do the same thing here with this column. We'll go into the column settings. We'll change the width of this column on a tablet to 100%. We'll remove some of the padding that we had inside of there. We'll center these text blocks and our divider and our text. That's looking pretty great. Now we may add a little bit of margin bottom to this picture. And again, the margin will give us some space on the outside before this second column. So let's just say 35 pixels. And that looks great. So now we can see how powerful this is. We've made a completely different layout on a tablet that's much more conducive to that screen size. Now for our last adjustments, let's go to mobile and see how this looks on a mobile device. So on a mobile device, what we did on the top section is we took this and we actually made the padding 20 all the way around. So we'll make it 20. That gives us a little bit more space. That looks pretty great. And then let's make this picture bigger here as well. So let's actually bump this back up to 100%. Looks great. All right, so now we've successfully designed our About page on desktop, tablets, and mobile devices. It looks great on each, and again, we can just see the power of Elementor being able to customize the layout and the design on each and every device size we might want. So in the next video, we're going to wrap up this section by learning how to save some of these sections as templates to make it faster and easier to design the rest of the pages in our project. See you then. Welcome back. As we wrap up this section, we're going to learn how to save a section as a template that we can use later to help building the rest of the pages of this site a lot faster and easier. We'll be saving both the header and this first 2-column section here to use later. But before we save the header, you may have noticed that on our sample site, this header text here is outlined. Now this is a special effect, not built into Elementor, but using CSS, which is the language used by websites to control how the content is displayed on a web page. It's the language that's secretly running behind the scenes in Elementor when we adjust padding, margin, color, font, everything like that that affects how our content is displayed. Now, if you'd like your text to be outlined as well, we're actually going to take advantage of Elementor's ability to receive custom CSS in the Elementor panel. If you'd like to follow along, go ahead and open up the PDF in the resources, and you'll find some CSS code in there. Don't be afraid, all we're going to do is copy and paste. So once you have that little section copied onto your clipboard, come back over here and let's go to the About text. We can click that, go to Advanced, and then down here at the very bottom, we can hit Custom CSS, and we'll paste that code in. Now all that piece of code is doing is telling that specific piece of text to have a 1-pixel outline that is white. Now we don't see it yet because we actually set the color of our text to be white. So to see the outline, let's go up to Style, click on our text color, and down here on the opacity bar, let's drag that all the way down to 0. And there we go. Now we have an outlined header text that we'll use on all of our pages. It looks pretty cool. Again, you don't have to do that, but that shows the power of some custom effects we can use with CSS. So let's save this real quick, and then before we finish this section, let's go ahead and save these 2 segments as templates. And to do that, it's real easy. We'll go up here and we'll right-click on this middle button, and we'll click Save as Template. And we'll call it Page Banner, and hit Save. And now we have the page banner with our footer and header and our coming soon templates. We'll close out of that. And now we'll go down to this first segment. We'll do the same thing, save as template, and we'll call this a 2-column section. And we'll hit save. And there we go, we've got it added as well. Now this is awesome because we'll be able to use these templates in future pages. You can also save any sections you'd like as templates to use and easily copy from page to page. And that's it. I hope you take a minute before heading to the next section and celebrate the fact that you just custom made your very first web page and it looks great. I hope you're really grasping the concepts we're learning. And if you need to, don't hesitate to go back and revisit a section or part of a video to review. I think you'll find that as we keep moving forward, these foundational concepts will become more and more second nature to you as you learn to put what's in your head on the page. In the next section, we're going to start in on the next page of our website, the contact page, and learn how to use forms in Elementor. Hope to see you there. Welcome back. In this video, we're going to pick up where we left off and create the second section, the biography section of our About page. So to do that, we'll actually duplicate this entire top section. So we can come up here and right-click and hit duplicate. And that'll give us an identical copy of that top section. Now for this section, let's start adjusting some of the content first. Again, this content is all found in the PDF, or you can make up your own as we go along. So this is a section that contains the biography of the founder of our make-believe company. So we called him Brian Jones. So let's go ahead and add that text. There's also a short biography for him in the PDF resources. So we'll copy and paste that as well. There we go. We're also going to add another header, and we're going to put it right under his name. We'll change this to H3, and we'll just say that he's the founder. There we go. Now we'll swap out this photo for Brian's photo. So click on the image, head over here, and click this. And again, in the resources folder, we can drag over the image called about section2.jpg. So we'll drag that in and hit Insert Media. And now we'll actually change this. Even though it shows this, it hasn't quite gotten the thumbnail ready yet. So we'll just toggle this to custom and then back to large, and it'll go ahead and make it into a square. Now, if you remember on the demo page, these columns were actually reversed, and that's easy to do as well in Elementor. We'll just take this column indicator and we'll click it and drag it over here. And now we've got the columns swapped. All right, so things are looking pretty great. It looks a little crowded in here though. Things are kind of jammed up against each other. And I'm sure you're wondering if there's an easy way to change that. And there is. In the next video, we're going to talk about a topic that's really important to web design, a vital topic to understand when it comes to laying out web pages, and something you're going to use on literally every web page you design from here on out. So I'll see you in the next video, and we'll take a look at it.